Okay. I don't really know why I'm doing this. That's a lie. I know why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I feel helpless and there's a kind of power in talking about problems. And I'm also kind of narcissistic, so I want to share it with all of you. I recently made the decision to stop smoking in my live streams because I think it's immoral. A lot of the people watching them, they're gaming live streams. A lot of people watching them are kids, so I think it's not moral to smoke while you're doing that in front of those people. But I'm not going to push this out to my subs, so. And I'm still smoking. And if I'm going to do something like this, there's just no way I can do it without smoking. So if you're a kid, let this be the first lesson. Don't smoke. I don't know what's going to happen to me 10 to 15 years from now. Statistically speaking, it's not looking good, but hopefully I quit very soon. It's on my list of things to do. But I apologize for even doing this, but I'm weak and I need to do it if I'm going to do what I want to do here. I'll probably smoke 10 of them before this is over. So, I am a 35-year-old loser. And there's no getting around that fact. I spent all of my 20s and half of my 30s so far doing almost nothing productive. I smoked pot. I watched porn. I played video games. Smoked cigarettes, got drunk. And I never took the time to really invest in my future, my finances, skill sets, knowledge bases, all that. It's not that I have no knowledge or skills, but none of it's very marketable. It might be marketable for something like YouTube, but I'm old enough to know, and I'm old enough to the point where I don't have the luxury of time where I can bet on YouTube or content creation or whatever to pay off. I'm going to do it. No matter what I do, I'll make room for this in some capacity just because I just feel like I need some kind of like creative, comedic kind of outlet. So, but I recognize that it's not the kind of thing that you can bank on making a living off of. And even if you get lucky, and maybe you're making good money for like a 5-year period, that can go away overnight. So I'm not putting all my eggs in this basket only because it makes zero sense. If I was 20, 25, I could do it more with less risk, but I'm not. I'm not even 30. I'm 35. I just turned 35 2 months ago. 2 months ago to the day, actually. And that's the first lesson. Well, the second lesson after don't do this. But I want to teach, impart upon young people. Although I have a feeling if you found this video, you're probably not that young. But in the off chance that I do get a couple of youngsters here, and I know that the 40 and 50-year-olds are laughing at me because 35 is young, whatever. Compared to a 20-year-old, I'm old as fuck. And the first thing I want to impress upon you, if you're in your 20s, 25, even if you're like pre-30, and again, I don't want anyone who's over 30 to lose hope here because I don't think it's over at 35 or even 45. But what happens as you age is your options shrink. Your options rapidly fall away. And what you might have done in your 20s, maybe you take a couple of years, maybe 5 years to explore different career path options. When you start to near 40, you have less time to spend researching that kind of stuff and developing an idea of what you would like to do for a living. So it's very important that you do that work as early as possible. If you're a teenager, that's great. 20s, whatever. Again, 30s even. Like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, I'm just going to roll over and die here. That is not the message I want to impart on anyone. For myself, I'm not going to do that. But also, if you are over 30, 40, don't give up. It's not. Trust me, the alternative is far worse than what you'll have to go through. Well, I shouldn't say trust me. I haven't done it yet. But you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to take the wind out of anybody's sails. I'm just trying to really what I'm trying to do is just assuage my own anxiety by talking about this. And maybe as a secondary goal, I can impart a little bit of advice to people who maybe can benefit from it. The number one thing, don't smoke. The number one thing. But yeah, a big piece of advice I would give to you is if you're in your 20s, those 20s go by real fast. And you want to get a handle on your future as early as possible, because every year that you don't is a year you'll never get back. And it's 1 year less you will have to play with later if you do eventually decide to get your shit together. So start early, because I can guarantee you, if you don't, you will regret it. I'm experiencing it firsthand. I guess I should probably just tell all here. I'm 35 years old, and I live at home with my mother. And we're actually living in my grandfather's house. Not to besmirch my mother, but, we both kind of fucked up with our money, although she's doing a lot better than I am. She worked for many years in a good career, so she has money, a little bit. Decent Social Security. So she's okay, I think. I hope. But I've never left home. And I've never told anybody this. So if my friends see this, it's going to be embarrassing. I worked. I wasn't a total NEET. Back in the day in high school, I worked in Burger King. Looks like I'm going to be working there again real soon. After that, I worked retail a couple of years, delivered pizza a couple of years. Loved that job. Pay wasn't amazing, and with the I delivered with my own vehicle. By the way, if you're ever thinking about delivering anything, pizza, whatever, never do it with your own vehicle, because just take whatever you're making and take like 90% of it and just throw it in the trash, because all that's going to go to car repairs. They usually pay for your gas while you're driving, but even then, I don't think they paid for it fully, but they pay for most of it. But the amount of money that you will spend, there's another piece of advice. If you're thinking about delivering pizza or whatever, always use a company car. Never take a job if you have to use your own car. I know that's probably most local places you'll have to use your own car. I'm telling you, it's a fucking scam. The amount of money you're going to spend on repairs, oil changes, and not even just repairs and oil changes. At a certain point, the repairs just become not worth it anymore, and you just have to get a new car. And that's going to cost all kinds of money and debt. And if you're delivering pizza with your own car, you're going to have to get a car real soon. You'll be lucky if that car lasts a year or two, maybe 3. If it's low mileage when you start, not worth it. If you can use a company car and you don't live in a sketchy area, I didn't really live in a sketchy area. I had a couple of close calls, but if you're not living in the ghetto or you're not working in the ghetto and you can use a company car, it's a pretty nice job, honestly. You can make okay money if it's busy, but good luck finding that. That's a crazy dream job. And even then, who wants to be a pizza delivery man until they're 50? I'm probably going to have to freaking do it at some point. So I delivered pizza. And then I went to work after that at the mortgage company that my mother worked at. She was a VP in the servicing department, and I went to work in the servicing department. I was a Nepo baby. And for 12 years, I worked at this mortgage company as a Nepo baby in what is basically an entry-level position. By the end of what I was doing, I had more responsibilities and it was a little bit more complicated than an entry-level position, but not by much. I was only making like 21 and change an hour, which is not a lot, working barely 35 hours a week. And I got laid off last December. The company's been doing kind of rough, and it's the market. It's horrible right now, and they're not immune to it. And I think the company like literally lost like half of its employees over the last few years, and I didn't make it through the last round. And basically ever since then, for the last 8 months, 9 months, I've been unemployed, working very inconsistently on this YouTube thing. And now the gravy train is ending. I'm running out of money. My mother can no longer support me. She's retired. So the reality of life and adulthood is finally starting to set in for the first time. And I have got to be honest, it is absolutely terrifying. One piece of advice I could give is, unless you're smart enough and disciplined enough to treat it correctly and maybe only treat it as like a stepping stone, do not take a nepotistic job. Again, I can't speak for everybody. You got a family business, like a family-owned business, and you're working for your parents, or that's fine, whatever. But if you get an in a company, especially if you get an in their department with a family member, especially if they're in a position of authority. I don't even know how they allow that kind of shit, but like I wouldn't allow that in my company, but don't go for it, because I worked at this place for 12 years. Basically my entire 20s and a little bit into my 30s. Most of my 20s and a little bit into my 30s. And I'm not going to totally blame the nepotism. I'm not trying to blame my mom here. But I can speak from experience, at least for me. Again, it might not apply to everybody, but for me, the nepotism thing, it just, the whole time I was working there, it was this extremely toxic environment. I knew I didn't belong there. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I could do the job. It's not a hard job, but I got there from someone else, and as a result, I never appreciated it. I always took it for granted. I was lazy. I was late every single day, sometimes showing up 45 minutes late. They were pretty chill about that kind of stuff. Like you could get in like 10 minutes late. It's not a big deal, but I pushed that shit every day, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It was ridiculous. Sometimes an hour. Ridiculous. I always worked the number of hours I needed to, although not diligently, but I would show up late constantly. And while they may not say it to your face, all of your coworkers are thinking it. Exactly what you're thinking. This fucking loser. And as a result, you can, like, even if you wanted to, which to be fair, I didn't, because I've been depressed and a pothead the whole time. Coomer. But even if I wanted to be friends with my coworkers, I'd have to really, really work, because you're always in that scenario kind of looked down upon a little bit, rightly so. I'm not blaming them, and I did myself no favors by not really applying myself and just coasting the whole time, which just made it worse. Like I was just confirming their prejudice and stereotype. I was just living up to it. I was just, yeah, that's who he is. That's what he is. And I didn't care about the job. I didn't appreciate it. I could have worked my way up the ladder a little bit, gotten more responsibilities, applied myself. I'm a smart guy. I like to think I'm a relatively well-spoken guy. I could have navigated the corporate environment, hierarchy. I even had my supervisor who fired me and I think didn't like me by the end of it. She'd only been my supervisor for like a year, my manager for like a year before I got fired. At first, she liked me, and she even spoke well of me to the owner of the company. She said I was smart and stuff. By the end of it, when she got to know me and got to work with me for a year and a half, By the end of it, I don't think she probably thought I was smart, but she knew that I had many other qualities that kind of crowded out the intelligence. Lack of discipline, laziness, depression, anxiety. I don't like to blame those things, but they don't help. They contribute to the problem. And it's ultimately your responsibility to deal with that. Like, as in a business, no one cares that you're depressed. That's your job. You're just there to make them money. They don't care about your personal problems. That's your responsibility. That's another piece of advice. Your problems are your problems. And an employer, they don't give a shit, and they shouldn't give a shit. It's not their responsibility. If they gave a shit about that, they wouldn't be making money. When you come to a workplace, when you come to a profession, a career, whatever, you're presenting yourself as an asset to a team to help that team make money. And anything that undermines your ability to be an asset to that team, it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter if you have a sob story. It doesn't matter if you really can justify it and give a good explanation for why you are the way you are. It doesn't matter. Money talks, bullshit walks. You need to perform. And they're not there to be your friend. They're not there to be your counselor. They're not there to be your mommy or your daddy that you didn't have. They're there to make money, and you're there to help them make money. And they're going to pay you some of that money. I lost my train of thought. I don't even know what I was talking about now. This is why, another reason, don't smoke pot. Another advice, don't smoke pot. So stupid. I haven't smoked in a little bit. Like 15 minutes. No. So yeah, I mean, I guess I worked there for 12 years. Didn't apply myself. Never got promoted. Got a few raises to keep up with inflation. Barely. Didn't probably. But I didn't not get promoted because they were out to get me. I didn't get promoted because I offered nothing worth promoting. And then because of that, this most recent round of layoffs, I'm sure most of the department that I worked in is probably still working there because they had their shit together. A couple of them, I know, there was like 2 or 3 people who got laid off around the same time I did. And it was already a lean department. There's probably only like 3 or 4 or 5 people left. But, I'm sure most of them, if not all, are still there because they're good workers. They're a value add to the company. And they deserve it. But I didn't. So I got fired, laid off, downsized, whatever you want to call it. Whatever way you want to church it up. I couldn't keep my job, but other people did. So call it fired if you want. And then about 6 months later, I turned 35 years old. And when I got fired, I had a small 401k, about $20,000, $25,000. And I cashed it out. I used it to pay off my car, which is one good probably the only good financial decision I've ever made is to pay off my car. My car has less than 70,000 miles on it, and it's a Toyota, so that could probably last me a little while if I take care of it. Don't have a car payment anymore. I do, however, have credit card debt and a personal loan totaling about less than $10,000 in debt. But the last couple of months, and again, I am laying it all out here. This is embarrassing to say. The last couple of months, I have been missing payments. Still don't have a job. Why don't you have a job? Because I'm a fucking idiot. I have been looking. I just went to Cumberland Farms for an interview that I had scheduled, and they weren't even hiring. Isn't that great? You apply on Indeed. They automatically enroll you for an interview. You spend all this time filling out these forms. You schedule the interview, but you never actually dealt with a person. And I show up. The lady has no idea what I'm talking about. Apparently the computer systems, I'm assuming they simply just didn't take the time to toggle a setting to not automatically interview people. But either way, it's still on me because I knew in the back of my head, I haven't talked to a person yet. I feel like there's not a security to this interview because I haven't spoken to a human being yet. And maybe I should call them or something. And I never did. And then a few days later, I show up bright and early at 9 a.m., which for me is very difficult right now because my sleep schedule is so messed up. I'm basically up all night. And I show up there half asleep, but trying to look presentable and for Cumberland Farms. And no interview. No idea what I was talking about. And for a minute, I was really crestfallen. Part of me was relieved because I don't want to work at Cumberland Farms. And I went home to my mother. And I was just like, I don't know. I wouldn't say I was distraught when I got home. By the time I got home, I had kind of calmed down. I was like, whatever. And I was looking at my Indeed resume. And I applied to a couple of places that were kind of similar to what I used to do. Haven't gotten any calls back on those. I need to interview for like 100 a day. I understand I have to do that. But this is a skill set I do not have, and I have to rapidly learn. But I was looking at my Indeed resume, and I read it out loud. I'm not going to do that here, but I read it out loud. And I read it to my mom, and she listened, and we both kind of agreed. She, she told me, and I kind of agreed and felt good about that. It was a good description of my job, right? You put your job in the resume, the years that you were there, and then you have a little blurb explaining what you were doing. And it's kind of a way to both signal the kind of work you were doing, but also the kind of person you are through the way you present it. With writing and persuasive writing, marketing yourself a little bit without being clumsy about it. And we both agreed it was a good blurb, a good resume blurb, whatever you want to call it. It was intelligent, it was cogent, it was comprehensive. Although there's one duty I realize I forgot to add to it, I have to go and add. But it was comprehensive, it was clear, well written. It kind of highlighted some softer skills I have that are useful, like image editing and writing. And I went from, because like at this time I had really only been looking for like retail because I had spent so many years in this job doing the bare minimum and being a terrible employee, the worst kind of employee. I kind of wasn't even bothering to look for anything adjacent to what I was doing. I was just looking for retail because I know I can do. I was selling myself short. I wasn't giving myself enough credit for my intelligence and my experience. And again, very low level stuff, but it's better than Walmart. Better than Burger King. And I'm not trying to look down on anyone who works at there. I'm just saying in terms of the marketability of skills and experience. It's better than if I had just worked at Walmart the whole time. So after I discussed this with her, my mother, who I live with, I made the decision, well, maybe I shouldn't set my sights so low, right? Maybe I shouldn't just go to Cumberland Farms. I'm going to have to work retail or something in the short term just because I need money. I need income. But at the same time, I've been applying to these more adjacent positions at companies, title companies, mortgage companies, banks, that kind of thing. And in doing this, my sights were set on something a little higher and more ambitious than retail. Because I realized, retail, especially 35 years old, you think, oh, I'm just going to do it for a year or two while I get my feet under me. And then you wake up at 50 years old and you're still working retail. It's really easy, especially if you make it work and you get enough jobs and you put enough hours together that you can pay your basic rent at a shitty apartment. And then because you're working so many hours and it's so soul crushing, the jobs that you're doing and the compensation you're getting, you have no energy left or ambition left energy, happiness, good vibes left to get out of it, to go to school, to set your sights higher, to start a business, whatever it is. It just becomes kind of enough, and you're also so depleted at the end of it that the effort required to get out of it is just too much. And the older that you get, the less energy you have, so that it just compounds and compounds. So while I was in this headspace of recalibrating my abilities and capabilities, setting my sights a little higher than Walmart or Burger King, I'm not going to name the field, only because if I do get into this, I want as much as possible to keep my professional and my streaming life separate. So I'm not going to give too many details on the exact field. I feel bad about this because I want to be totally open and honest, but at the same time, just for risk mitigation, I have to be a little bit opaque about this. But suffice it to say, the field is, business oriented, kind of, not business owning, but business oriented. And if you spend your time to upskill and all that, and you put in crazy hours for a few years, and you're really driven and hungry, you can make decent money. Not millionaire status, but you can make a few $100,000 if you're really good and you go to the higher levels. But even at like the lower and mid levels, you can make, high 5 figures, sub 6 figures, which is not great, especially depending on where you live, but it's a lot better than Walmart. So I kind of considered getting into it. So then when you decide to get into something like this, you research everything, you look up all the pros and cons, you read Reddit posts by people who are doing it. And, I get a lot of mixed messages. Some people hate their job. Some people like it. Some people say AI and outsourcing and all this is replacing everything. Some people say it isn't. And I'm in this situation now where I'm 35. I don't know what I want to do. Do I want to do this thing? Do I want to do that thing? There's a couple of options. But they all require like many years of school. Maybe not a lot. You maybe only need 2 to 4 years of school. Some of them maybe 5 or 6. Which is not just a time commitment, which is important when you're this age, but also it's a money commitment with student loans and. And then I'm reading these horror stories about the job market, which I know the job market today isn't going to be the job market 5-10 years from now, but it could be worse. I mean, who knows, So I'm in this position now where I'm 35. I have basically nothing. I have some time. Like, I'm not like 50 or 60. And even if you're 50 or 60, you could probably do some things. But like, I don't have, again, the luxury of trying things out. I'll spend a year doing that. I'll spend a year doing this. Maybe I could get away with that for like 2 to 3 years, trying to not like just sitting around thinking, but actually going after things and seeing if they work. But again, by then I'll be 37 years old, 38. I'll be almost 40 years old, just figuring out what I want. I'll be way behind the ball. My earning potential will be crippled. And there's no guarantee at the end of it to even have a job waiting. That's the reason, like, even during my 20s, which now is like when I was 20, that's 15 years ago. Even back then, I did go to community college. I got a community college associate's gen ed degree. It took me 4 years to get a gen ed degree from a community college. But I didn't really take education seriously, schooling seriously, because, you're told college is worthless. College degrees are worthless. You can't get a job with a college degree. Even if you get a college degree, there are no jobs out there to get. So, and they're all liberal lib shits in college. So I was just like culturally, I wasn't built for it. And I hate sitting in a goddamn classroom. I'm just not that kind of person. So I didn't go to college, really. I didn't really get a degree. And more importantly, I didn't get any real experience or skill sets or marketable skill sets in my 20s that I could now leverage in my 30s. And again, you hear people like, I've read these stories. I'm going to try to keep it vague, of people with like 15 years experience all over different, an industry, high certifications, high credentials, and even they are having a hard time finding work. So then I'm thinking about now at 35, just potentially getting into it, not really being done with my schooling until like 39, 40 years old. It's going to take, if I want to get a bachelor's, it's going to take at least 4 years. And if I'm doing that while I'm working full time, am I going to get it done in 4 years? Maybe it takes me 5 or 6. But for a brief moment when I had decided to do this thing, a lot of the anxiety went away because I had direction that I was going to do something. But now I'm back to kind of feeling crestfallen. I didn't think about this initially. I didn't think about this until tonight, actually. And this kind of is one of the reasons I'm doing this. I want to be a content creator. I want to be a streamer. I want to play video games. I want to crack jokes. I want to do stuff like this, talk and just chill and meet people, talk to people. I want to do that. I know it's hard to do that as a full-time job. And like I said earlier, like even if you manage to get lucky and turn it into a full-time job, you never know, which way the winds are blowing in terms of your audience. You could be really relevant and successful for a year, 2, 3, 5 years, and then no one cares anymore. You're too old. You get lazy, whatever. Just the niche that you're in just is no longer viable. Like I want to do largely like video game kind of stuff. And then I'm reading lately that Gen Alpha doesn't play video games. They're playing all mobile games now. No one plays video games. So I'm like, I don't think video games will ever go away. And gamers are aging with me. Like the average gamer is like my age now. But, things like that can happen. Algorithmic changes. You say something you shouldn't and you get demonetized or banned. I mean, I want to be kind of a funny guy, so there's that risk as well. You're still working when you're a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer or whatever. There are other places like Rumble and Kick, but the two main games in town are Twitch and YouTube, and those are often worked together in tandem with each other in the streamer kind of thing. And you're working for a couple of bosses, either of which could fire you at any time. And if you're trying to be a funny guy, maybe a little edgy, there is that risk that you run afoul of their guidelines and they can just turn it off overnight and you are fucked. So while I definitely do want to do this YouTube thing, and I do want to create stuff, stream, crack jokes, whatever, I can't look at it. And again, if I was 20 or 25, sure. If I was 20, try it out, do it. If you get banned or it doesn't work out in 5 years, you're 25. You can do something else. But now I'm 35. So again, we come back to that. Once you get over that 30, it's like your time, you don't have time anymore. Or you do, but it's a lot less. And you have to start thinking more strategically about what you do with your time. And things have to have more immediate returns for you to consider them, because more immediate and secure returns to consider them, because you don't have the time. You don't have the time, you have less energy. So I was feeling really good about this potential new career path I had identified for a minute. For a few days, I was feeling really good. And I was like, I'm going to do this. It's going to work. I'm going to do YouTube on the side. Maybe I can build the YouTube while I'm working this thing and have dual incomes maybe or something. And then today I realized that being a content creator, especially not being a milquetoast kind of corpo advertiser friendly content creator, is a big risk. Because, you could piss somebody off, the employer could find the YouTube channel, whatever. Somehow your content creator identity gets back to your employer. And depending on the job, depending on the industry, depending on the position, how high up or low down it is, that could be a problem. You could get fired for that. They could not like some of the jokes you were making, not like some of the topics you're discussing. And when I realized that, it kind of took all the wind out of my sails, because for a few days I was riding high. I was like, I think I finally have some direction. It's practical. It's tangible. It's realistic. It pays okay. It's a real thing. But if I pursue this, does that mean I have to quit doing this? Now, I haven't even really started doing this. I'm super early in this process of YouTube and content creation and all that. But if I go deeper, if I spend 4 or 5 years in school, and all the while I'm working on this YouTube thing and it starts picking up, what happens? What happens if I spend that time and money to go to school, get my degree, come out, get a job, and then I lose it in a year, 2 years, because I got doxxed or canceled or whatever? So then I was like, well, then I have to choose then. Like, I have to do this thing or I have to do YouTube. But neither option is viable. If I just did this thing and I quit YouTube, I might as well just kill myself now. I'm not advocating that. Suicide is horrible, and you're devastating the lives of everyone. And people you don't even know will be harmed. And it's a temporary solution it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But, if I had to give up YouTube or content creation entirely, I would be miserable. I'd be working this job. I wouldn't be making a shitload of money. And I would always feel like I'm leaving my soul on the table. Like I'm taking my soul out and I'm putting it in an envelope and I'm handing it to my employer, and he's taking it and putting it in a drawer. And in exchange for that envelope with my soul in it, he gives me a paycheck each week. And probably not even a great one, to be honest. Probably just barely enough to afford a studio. And I just can't do that. I cannot do that. But equally, I cannot just be a YouTuber. For the reasons I've listed, it's too insecure. The odds of even getting to a point where you're making a decent enough living at it, it might not happen. It's very risky. It's very uncertain in terms of it ever actually taking off. And even if it does take off, it's very fickle. At any moment you could get, there are a million risks to being a content creator as your main focus. You can get canceled. They can do algorithmic changes that just make it really hard to make money if you're not making absolute dog shit slop like all these shorts we see. Don't even get me started on the shorts, dude. I could rant about that for an hour. These dudes who will just take someone else's clip, some other viral clip that's just been going viral, and they'll just have their face above it, and they're not even fucking saying anything. They're just looking at it like it's the most degenerate form of content. You could have hardcore gay pornography on YouTube. It would be less degenerate than these shorts fake reactor channels. Because they're not even reacting. They're not saying anything. They're just making faces, and the faces aren't even legit. They're fake mugged faces where they're going like, they're pretending like they're holding in laughter. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. You've seen these. They're pretending like they're holding in laughter while they're watching some clip that you've seen 1,000 times. They're not even sincerely reacting. They're pretending to react to a viral clip that's not even their own. It shouldn't. I don't even think it is actually allowed on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that kind of React content is against TOS because you're not adding anything. But they're everywhere. Don't even get me started, man. So there could be algorithmic changes. You could get canceled. You could, and also even if you play your cards right, you don't run afoul of the TOS and you manage to stay on top of the algorithm game and all that, you could just lose relevance. You could just, not that I have any relevance now, but if I were able to build some, you can just lose it overnight. People are fickle. People age out of things. Generations pass and different kinds of things become relevant. And, like, for example, think of like Asmongold. Is Asmongold going to be a big famous creator until he's 70? It's possible. If anyone can do it, it's him, because he's already built that brand and he's good at what he does. But for a lot of people, especially people who would just start at 35, can you be secure even if you were to bust your ass off for 10 years building your online thing? Is that going to be there 10 years from that, 20 years from that? Are you going to be able to live off of that? Are you going to be able to retire off of that? It's very fickle. So I can't just be a YouTuber because I need to make money now, and I'm not going to be making that much money off of YouTube in the short term, if at all. And like I said, even if I were to make money on YouTube, it could go away like that. So being a pure YouTuber just isn't in the cards for me either. Just like being a pure whatever, basic normal job isn't really a thing for me either. So I don't really have an option. I don't really have an option other than to just kind of do both things. Normal job, YouTube on the side. If YouTube lets me quit my job, great. But, even that, it's like, would you want to quit your job? Probably not, because YouTube can go away. Maybe you could downsize the amount of time you're working at your job. I don't know. But, even so, I was kind of back. We're back. And I was like, okay, I'll just do both. And fuck, worrying about getting canceled or doxxed or whatever. I'll just do my best to kind of separate the two worlds. I'm not going to, no matter what I do, it's not going to be some super high power position in New York or whatever. It's going to be, a low level, local kind of gig. So that kind of scrutiny isn't on you as much at that level. So I could probably make it work. I could probably do the thing and do content creation if I'm fastidious about keeping the two separate. But then, so I was back. I was like, okay, I'm going to do both. And I don't care about the risks. I mean, I care about them. I'm aware of them, but I'm not going to let that stop me. And then I'm on Reddit again, reading testimonials from people in the industry that I'm looking at. And just like everywhere else, they're saying how terrible the job market is. And again, like I said, people with 15 years experience, high certifications and degrees, they can't find work. And those are like the only people who can find work. If you're going to find work, you're going to be one of those high level people, but it's even going to be hard for you. If you're an entry level, which is what I would be at 40 years old, it's real hard. Now, again, that's now. 5-10 years from now, it might not be that bad. I don't know. The trends don't look good. To me, it seems like it's just going to get worse until we have a political revolution in this country and a civil war. I mean, that's the whole other thing, is the future is so uncertain from a civilizational perspective that just throws a monkey wrench into any plans I try to make. So I'm truly at a loss here. I think for now I am going to pursue this thing while also doing this YouTube thing. But, I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know if I'll decide to switch to a different path, but, while I'm in school. I considered programming, but again, programming to me seems like, I think IT is the one, right, that gets outsourced and AIified, but I think programming is a little bit more secure. But the problem is I'm not a programmer. I've never been a programmer. I'm not even good at math. I think I would probably like the work of if if I had the aptitude for it. I think I would like programming more than this other thing. But again, programming requires a lot of math, and I'm competing with like 20-year-olds who are programmers, who've been into programming since they were teenagers or younger, or at the very least into it since they were in their 20s. And I'm 35, and I don't know any programming, right? I know Windows. I play video games, so like I know how to do some basic. I could do IT no problem. I'm a PC gamer, so I've troubleshooted a shitload of stuff on my own. I've helped people troubleshoot things with their games, but even as a PC gamer, I'm not super knowledgeable. It's pretty basic stuff. But then that IT thing, so like IT is like the no-brainer, but then that like isn't IT, that's what's getting sent to India and replaced with AI. And remember, by the time I would be ready to do it, it'd be like 5 years from now, at least a couple. And it's like that kind of, those trends, I feel like will just get worse and worse. So right now I'm kind of lost again. I'm not totally lost. I'm still looking into this thing, which I don't want to name. And I'm still going to be doing this. And I'm going to be working a day job. Cumberland Farms, Walmart, 2 of them, 70, 80 hours a week. It's going to be awesome. And at some point soon, I'm probably going to have to go back to school, get an associate's. But I'm a little terrified, scared. And I talked to my mom earlier. She was pretty good, but mothers, they tell you what you want to hear. They're nice people. They love you. Helped me a little bit, made me feel a little good, but not enough to totally assuage my fears. So then I was like, well, the job market's terrible. I wouldn't even be making that much money anyway. I'd be 40 years old when I start really in earnest. Just do the YouTube thing full time. But then all those things I mentioned, YouTube is a long shot in the best of conditions. It's a long shot. And even if you manage to get successful, it can be very short-lived. And I would never be the kind of person who could be like Mr. Beast and just like be a beast at YouTube. Because sure, like Mr. Beast, yeah, if you get Mr. Beast levels, you do it for 5 years, you're set for life. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should be Mr. Beast, the next Mr. Beast. Because like if you get that big, you're set for life, and you only have to work 5-10 years, and you don't have to work ever again. But again, am I going to be the next Mr. Beast? Probably not. Again, I wouldn't make that kind of content. That kind of content just doesn't appeal to me. It would feel like working a desk job. It'd just be a soulless like extraction of money for something that I'm not really invested in spiritually. So I don't know what to do. That's the whole video. This isn't going anywhere. This doesn't have a resolution yet. Maybe we'll find out in a year's time if it does. But right now, I am just scared, lost, confused, full of regret. And if anyone is younger than me, if you're like 20, 25, and maybe some of what I said resonated with you, take my words to heart, dude. You don't want to wake up at 35 years old, still living at home, no real marketable skills, no real degrees, wondering if you're going to be working at Walmart until you're 75 years old, living in welfare housing with roommates. You do not want to be in that position. Now, this has been a little doom and gloom. I am hopeful. There is optimism here. I'm 35. It's not that old. I know a lot of people who are older would watch me and go, 35, you're so young. Well, if you're also being realistic, it's not that young. It's a lot older than 20. But I recognize that, I'm not that old. I can, as long as I get to work right the fuck now and figure out what I'm doing, which is what I'm doing right now, and this video is a part of it. bounce back from this. I'll always suffer for it, though. I'll never make as much money as I could have. I'll always be struggling a little, unless I like hit the lottery or something. I'll always be struggling a little bit more than I would need to. So if you're young, if you're in your 20s, get started now, you know. Even if it's and here's the thing, even if it's like a boring ass field or degree, but it's got good earning potential and you can handle it, you know, do it for 10 years until you're 30, 35 years old. You're still super young. You have a decade plus of experience under your belt. You'll probably have some money. Save it, invest it, be smart with your money so that when you hit 40, even if you don't want to continue doing what you were doing because it's kind of boring and you just did it for the paycheck, well, you're still young enough that you can kind of pivot, but you have experience working in a real field. You have some money under your belt saved and invested, so you can more comfortably pivot to something else that you'd want to do. Because trying to do that from my position, where I'm 35 and I literally have nothing. I have no money. This is so, woe is me. I'm just being honest. I'm just trying to honestly tell my story here. I'm 35 and I literally have nothing. And that is a very scary position to be in. So if you can hit 35, even if you don't like what you're doing, you can pivot from that. And you want to be able to do that with some security, money, skills, education, so that you'll have that to fall back on if you have to. Or you can maybe transmute that into a new industry that you weren't involved in initially, that you do like. And yeah, this is, you know, I'm sorry this doesn't have like a big resolution to it. It doesn't have a big happy ending. I'm still in the middle of the story right now, or yeah, I guess I'm in the middle of the story. So I don't even know what's going to happen. I just wanted to get it out. I just wanted to get my thoughts out, express myself for me, not for you. I hope it helped someone out there, but I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this just because I can talk to my mom. My dad lives in another state. I can talk to him. I'm going to talk to him on Friday. It's Wednesday or Thursday now. I'll talk to him tomorrow. So I have those guys I can talk to. I don't have a lot of friends. I have a couple of internet friends, but internet friends, it's not the same thing as a flesh and blood connection. So I'm going to do some more soul searching. Don't have a lot of time to do it, though. The clock is a-ticking. I may end up going for this thing I've been looking at. One thing I can tell for sure is even if I never get any subs and never get any views and never make $1 for it, I will be doing content creation in some capacity because it's what I want to do, right? It's really what I want to do. So then the question is, well, why don't you just do that then? I've already explained it. Security. Age. If I was 20, if I had this realization at 20, I would have gone 100% into it and I might have millions of subs by now and be set. But I didn't. I started basically at 35. Right? So if there's any reason to this video other than me just bitching and moaning about my shit and putting it on other people, the one thing you can take away from this video is if you are young, get started now. Because it goes by a lot quicker than you think. You do not have as much time as you think. But if you do use the time that you do have effectively, you can set yourself up to be in a lot better position than I'm in. So I think that's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'll give an update. I think this is going to be like my therapy. I'm broke. I can't afford a therapist. So talk to my mom, talk to my dad, talk to you guys, figure shit out. Maybe I'll make something happen. But like I said, no matter what I do, no matter what industry I get into, if I'm working Walmart, if I'm programming or doing the other thing, whatever it is, I'll always do this in some capacity because I have to. I have to do this. As much as I have to find a job that pays me real money, I also have to do this. So I'm going to find ways to balance the two. So stay tuned, and I'll see you on the next one.